Alright, I wasn't actually going to do an unboxing, but I figured, why not? Just take a few minutes and let's see what we got, okay? We'll bring this in a little. Actually, that's about a good spot. It comes in white. The mic clouds are in white. I didn't really care for that. I wanted to keep the aesthetic clean with all the black stuff, but the only ones that they have are either the MyBook, which doesn't do the cloud storage backup solution, or the EX series. So you have your EX2 and EX4. So EX2s are the enterprise level NAS devices with 2 bays, and then they go up from there, and varying degrees or varying sizes of the internal hard drive. So let's go ahead and pop this open. Now, I am a stickler for saving the boxes, the original packaging. As a matter of fact, when I sent the old drives back, I actually had the boxes that I purchased them in. So I was able to keep the boxes for these new drives. That's the ones that are sitting over here. Or those are the ones sitting over here. And I just prefer to do that. I don't know why. It's just something I've always done. I've saved the packaging for things that, I don't even have anymore. There was a time we were moving and I had boxes of boxes, if that makes any sense. Boxes of boxes. So I had to throw away a lot of things before we moved. But you ask yourself, wow, dude, it's just plastic. Just take a moment. But you know what? This is what I like to do. I like to save these. Keep them in the condition that I got them in. And I think my reasoning before was, I thought that if I ever decide to sell it, then you have the original packaging. But that proved more often than not that I would never sell it. I have so many old gadgets sitting in drawers, it's ridiculous. One of my favorite old gadgets is an old Cassiopeia. I bought that maybe 15 years ago now. This was a little treat for myself back when PDAs were the thing. Personal digital assistants. This thing has a compact flash card reader, and the dock, well, it wasn't USB, it was a serial connection. I forget how much the internal memory was, but it wasn't anything. That's why I had to do the compact flash. The other funny thing was the screen wasn't able to display full color. Alright, so anyway, back to this. So here's a shot of the inside of the box. You got your nice divider, little feet. It looks like it does come with the piano finish, but it's white, so that's going to hide smudges and scratches. So you have your drive. Comes with one USB port. I was wishing it had 2, but you can put a USB hub on it since the drives are powered. One of the things I really wanted to know, and I couldn't figure it out online or in the store, nobody knew what type of drive was in this. Is this a Western Digital blue? Is it a green? Or my hope was it a red? Because the red drives are for network attached storage, or they're high-end. All of their EX series drives or external devices use Western Digital red drives. So I don't know what's in this. I'm gonna have to find out. I tried looking online on my phone in the store. I tried asking folks. I tried looking it up on the computers there. Whatever. All right, so we have some concierge service. You need help? Give them a call. Here's the data migration walkthrough. That might come in handy, considering the internal or the external drive is connected to, I can take a look at that, the external drive is connected to the computer and not directly to this. I thought you could. It doesn't matter, because as long as I get the data. And here's your quick installation guide. So, it's funny, but I guess it's nice to have all these things, and maybe you might reference them once or twice, especially if you have a warranty question, but all this stuff usually gets thrown away. Comes with a network cable. Doesn't look like it could be sufficiently enough for my needs. My router, I have what is that? Second generation maybe? Airport Extreme in here. And then I have the latest generation Airport Extreme out in the living room, and it's just extending the network. So I have a solid signal here on this side of the house, and on the other side of the house is extended with the other router. But both drives, or both external, try that again. Those routers only have USB 2 interfaces on the back. So if I were to plug these drives in to those as network attached storage, already the interface is limiting it. And the other thing too is it only shares the drive. It doesn't really monitor the drive. It doesn't maintain the drive. Now I had a Western Digital plugged into one a while ago, 1 terabyte, and it did a really good job of putting it to sleep. But I don't know. I like more control over that, because since they're not inside the machine, they're not getting maintained by the computer, they're not being checked for errors. And so, I don't know, that's the kind of stuff that I just like to keep tabs on, especially when you have critical data. And here we have a K-Tech power adapter, 12 volts, 1.5 amps. Interesting size. It's kind of long. But 1.5 amps. So, alright. I'm going to go ahead and go through the installation guide, make sure that I'm doing this the right way. I got to run some cable over to this thing because I want to keep it right next to these drives, and then we'll power it up, go through the web interface, or I should say its interface. I don't know. Yeah, it's got a web interface, but also uses the software. So we'll go through that, and then we'll see about copying data over. So let me give you a quick glimpse of the error log that I got on one of the drives. I tried to do several tests. I always start with the simplest test and I move forward. You can see here that where it says short test failed, when I run these drives, when I run the diagnostic, let's see if it's actually showing here. Because when I run this diagnostic, let's say I pick this guy up. And then I said, okay, run your basic tests. Sometimes it'll recognize these drives as 2 different drives here, one with different interfaces. So what's happening is, like, I'll run it in the first interface and it'll give me an error. But then when I run it in the second interface, then it works just fine. So it's strange. I don't know what's going on with it. Let's see, was it this one? Yeah. So it fails, and then I just start it up normal, and you see that it comes out okay. Here's what I started to see. Look at all those bad blocks. So when I saw that, I told it not to fix the errors, because my fear was, you know, if it marks them as bad, how does this check work? Does it do it like check disk, where it tries to recover the data first and then mark it as bad, or does it see it and say, hey, I'm just going to mark it bad, and then I lose that data? I'd rather have a fighting chance of recovering that than having this just automatically wipe that space. Anyway, you can see how long it is. It's just bad blocks all around. So I went ahead and connected it, and it was actually really easy. I powered it on, and it tells you to go to WD My Cloud in your browser. Well, Chrome thought you were searching for that when you type it up in the address field. So after a couple attempts, it says, were you trying to go to http://wdmycloud? And I clicked on that. This little bar came down here. I clicked on that, and then it brought me to the wizard. The first thing that it asked me was, hey, to access all these features, whatever, you need to sign in. Okay. So you create an account. It's really quick. And then it says, hey, do you want to register this drive for promotions and blah, 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 and also for check for updates and update firmware automatically? I said, sure. So I did that, and here we are at the next screen. And this is what I really wanted to see. I want to see something that's aware of its smart status. Here we can see that the temperature is okay. I don't think this drive has a fan in it, but as long as we're in the okay, that's fine. It's showing me the drive status, which is just basically the summary of the smart. It's showing okay, and it's mounted the volumes and how much free space I have, which is cool. We'll take a look at the firmware here later. It already shows that I have 1 user. That's the account that I just made when I signed up. And the second one are shares, and they're just your basic shares. They're just public, smartware, and time machine backup, which will work because I don't necessarily make time machine backups for my Mac. I just use CrashPlan to back up my data, and if I ever have to restore it, then that's fine. User accounts, cloud access, I still have to configure. And the cool thing about this save points is kind of like their version of restore points. So if you have another drive attached to it, you can create a save point, and that copies that state over to that drive. And then if you ever need to restore something, you ever delete something by accident, you can pull it out of the save point. So that's kind of neat. I still have to poke around and see what else is going on in here, you know, configure things. And I'll play with that right now. And then I'll get a USB 3 cable and I'll plug one of those drives over to it and see how it mounts, and then if I can transfer the data. So I had to do a bit of a, I guess another way of going about this. I'm not messing around with that drive right now. That's something I can experiment with later. Plug in the externals to this drive directly via the USB connection. One of the things that I don't know if I really appreciate this or not. You know, the interface is pretty straightforward, but the documentation really doesn't show you how to use it. It just shows you how to connect it, and then it's up to you to kind of figure out how to get around it. I had to reboot the thing in order for the shares to show up, even though it says everything was ready. So right now, let's do, it's still running this test, system diagnostic test. It was a quick test, but it's still running it. And you can hear the drive is a little bit busy, but at the same time, like I don't want to. Maybe I can just cancel it, but I do want to let it run because it locked up when I had the other drive connected to it. So I rebooted it, and it just took a while to get back online, and it's just acting a little weird. And so you see, it's still initializing, which I don't understand. Okay, now we're okay. And maybe it just takes a while for this interface to update. I don't know, but it's still running its test. I'm going to start copying some data here in a second. I have about 3.2 terabytes to copy. I just made a backup folder and called it Seagate. And as soon as I did that, it did give me some grief about what it was named. So I ended up just calling it Seagate. Anyway, so I did that, went ahead and mapped it as a Z drive, and right now, I'll show you. When you go into the Seagate folder, those are the other folders that are default made for me, which I didn't ask it to. It just, as soon as I made it, there it was. So you go into Seagate, and it makes two drives, Seagate 1 and 2. So I created these folders, and what I'm going to do is just compare the differences between this and that. You know, I don't know what it's having trouble focusing on. But it's going to compare the differences between those two and then hopefully synchronize it. I did a quick test to see speed. Oh boy, here we go. How much do we have? 2.69 terabytes to move. So we'll go ahead and start that up. I think some of it is going to be the recycle bin, system volume, that kind of stuff. We can see the throughput here. That's not terrible. One day. It's not like I have anything else going on. Plus, some of these files, you know, it doesn't have a chance to actually calculate a proper throughput or megabytes per second because the file is so small that it's moved on to the next file. When you get to the larger files and you get a consistent transfer, then you'll see the speed. I mean, that's not terrible for network backup. You know, for streaming, that's going to be more than enough. Sharing files is more than enough. It's going to add more time. Wow, 18 hours. That's actually not too bad. It's going to add more time to my transfer because I could be doing 150 or more when I have it connected via USB directly. But I'm not sweating it right now as long as I get this data. So we'll let it run, and if there's any updates, I'll post an update. So I've had this thing synchronizing now for about 8.5 hours, and you could see the estimated time. This is free file sync. It's always done really well for me. It's helped me a lot, especially in this situation when trying to recover my data. But look at that. I'm not sure what's happening. Now I do have 2 instances running, and this one's doing a little bit better, but you know, I kicked that off look at that, 960 days remaining. 5. I don't know why it's going so slow. It's on a gigabit connection. Now, one thing that I am going to try is, I have my 2nd generation Airport Extreme in my office, and then I have the latest, I forget what model it is, I guess the 5th generation Airport Extreme. You can see it over here. This is the setup. You know, I just have it plugged in directly to the port, and it's gigabit, but it's just, man, it's so slow. I can't do anything with it. So I'm going to try plugging it into my newer one and seeing if that makes a difference. Thankfully, I'm able to mount the drives and I can read them fine. I don't know. I also have I have this little guy here that I kind of pulled out of my old stuff. It's a, what is this, a 5-port gigabit switch. I may just plug those in directly on the desk and see if that helps. So maybe I'll try that first, and then I'll try swapping routers. Well, I'm still trying to get this figured out, and I tried plugging in the top drive to the USB 3 port on this thing, and it took a minute to recognize it. One thing I found is this is not terribly fast. It takes a little while to reboot, and you can see that I'm having some problems already. It's still initializing. I don't know why. What's taking so long? And these are things that I can't force. When I plugged in the drive, database internal server error. When I plugged in the drive to this other computer, it showed up here. It took a minute to actually tell you how big the drive was or how much space was used. But yeah, see, it's still initializing. I'm going to go through the settings here and see if I can clear this out. But so, I mean, right away, we're getting some problems. So let me tinker around a little bit more and see what I can do. Well, I thought this was going to be my saving grace, but it's not. As is my luck, I picked the only drive that's bad from the bunch over at Best Buy. So I spent all night transferring files. In 8 hours, it only transferred 6 gigabytes of data. Thankfully, the Seagate drives are still functional. This thing, I even did a test just now to see what it would be to transfer just a bunch of music. And I was getting anywhere from 900 kilobytes to 26 megabytes, but it was just all over the place, not consistent. It takes a long time. Actually, the whole day I wasn't able to get into the web interface. The software wouldn't detect it. Even the app on my phone wouldn't detect it. So I tried different configurations. I was on the phone with Seagate. I mean, not Seagate, Western Digital. They recommended using a different cable. That didn't make a difference. I tried plugging it in to the switch. It worked at the beginning, but then it didn't work anymore. Right now it's plugged in. I even swapped out my router. You can see my new Airport Extreme in the back. It made no difference. I mean, the drive was just not able to run. So I plugged everything back, unplugged it, plugged it back in. It kept giving the blinking yellow. Unplugged it, reset it according to what the instructions from the gentleman at Western Digital. Still wouldn't do it. So I unplugged it, plugged it back in, went outside for a few minutes and came back, and the light was blue. I think it was the right color. And I was able to access it. So I tried copying some data, and it was just super, super slow. So I thought, you know what? I'm not even going to play with this anymore. I got 6 gigs on there. I'm just going to tell it to do a factory reset. I'm going to pack it up and send it back to Best Buy. I bought it last night, not even 24 hours later, and here I am with another dead hard drive. So once it's done formatting, like I said, we'll package it up. I think I'm just going to get an internal drive because my internals seem to be doing fine. Just something about externals here, I don't know. They keep dying. I really would have liked to keep using this. I like the features that it offered, but reliability is really the #1 priority here. And if this drive can't be reliable, then it doesn't belong here. These drives, I just wish they would just work and we wouldn't have this problem, but here we go again, just adding more trouble to this whole situation.